About 8 years ago, City FM started a media campaign, Stop Galamsey Now. That was a hashtag. Indeed, we got the support of so many other media houses. There was soon a coalition that was created of media houses which were joining the campaign. The campaign was to ensure that our environment was safe, our river bodies were safe, and that there would be mining, but it should be done in a very responsible way. The president, Nana Addo Akufo-Addo, who had just taken office at the time, said he had put his presidency on the line. And so we're all excited, hooray. But 7 to 8 years on, we realize that the campaign has been lost. So there's a renewed call and a renewed campaign to end Galamsey and also stop mining temporarily, mining of all forms. So on Face to Face today, that's actually the conversation we are looking at, continue with the campaign against illegal mining. And I'll introduce my guest, who is a very vociferous one if it comes to this campaign against illegal mining. My name is Omar Rosanda, but I'll introduce my guest after this break. My guest on Face to Face is a media practitioner. He's an engineer, and he's the leader or convener of the Media Coalition Against Illegal Mining. Dr. Engineer Kenneth Ashigbey, you're welcome to Face to Face.
Thank you very much.
How are you doing?
Ordinarily, I would have said I'm fine, but you see, when you live in an environment where you are self-poisoning yourself, where you have turbidity of water in August, recording 14,000 NTUs, you have the situation where he went to the same university I went to, a young man, after vacation goes home to prepare and come for his thesis defense, goes into one of these areas, falls into a pit and dies. You have a pregnant woman, wakes up in the morning, responds to nature's call, implodes and dies. You have the situation where Water Research Institute had gone to some of these communities to do some experiment and bought bread from the side of the road, come and test that. And then they find heavy metals in that. Then that's not that's not a condition that you can see, you can respond, you're fine.
You're not fine.
No.
And indeed, the whole nation is not fine. We'll talk about illegal mining, Galamsey, and the consequences. But before then, because I'm in your office where you are acting as the CEO of the Chamber of Telecommunication Company, I think it's only fair. And since telecommunication has become the order of the day, when you wake up in the country now, and in fact the world, the first thing you do is to pick up your phone. And so the mobile phones have become very essential, and communication is very important. How is your industry doing? What are the challenges in the telecoms industry? Which challenges you've been trying to fix?
So, Mara, the interesting thing again is that this is also the office of the EMI Chamber of Ghana, the mobile money chamber that have been formed. We're going to be outdooring that on the 3rd.
Oh, so your Chamber of Telecoms, which is the telcos coming together to have one voice, you represent them.
Yes.
You also represent mobile money.
Yes. So the EMI. So that is AT Money. Then you have MML, that's the Mobile Money Limited, that is MTN's mobile money.
Okay.
Then you have ZPay.
Okay.
Then you have G Money. And then you have Telecel Cash.
So they are treated as different companies than their mother companies?
Yes, they are regulated by Bank of Ghana. And there's supposed to be a China wall between them and their parent company.
That's interesting. So, but you are yet to launch that one?
Yes,
and
in
that
October,
one
but we've been working.
Okay.
We registered at the Registrar General, and so we've been working. So the formal launch will be done on the 3rd of October by the governor and then His Majesty the Galamsey.
I see. So that will be the focus. Now let's talk about your chamber generally and your industry generally. How is what are the key challenges for you?
Well, the key challenge, the industry is distressed. An industry where, you currently have only three players from the point where you had, when I joined in 2017, there were about 5 of us.
Okay.
An industry where you have, in terms of the MNOs, you have consolidation of entities that are the entities themselves are competitors, but they will come together and merge. It tells you the challenges that confront the industry. An industry where also we know that recently there have been challenges that people have had with the quality of service. And all of that is coming from the situation where you have about 5,000 fiber cuts between January and June, and you spent about $8.5 million just fixing fiber cards. And then consumers are complaining.
I'll get to that fine detail, but on the issue of the numbers, Is the industry shrinking? Because now you have practically what, 2 or 3 telcos?
You have
MNOs.
3 MNOs.
There used to be more.
Yes, so you had a situation where even 80 now was Airtel and Tigo.
So 2 becoming 1.
2 becoming 1. You had the issues of Espresso that had left the market. Even when you come to the tower companies, we had 3. There was American Towers, there was Helios Towers, there was Eaton Towers. But American Towers, then Eaton Towers, then was subsumed under American Towers. It just tells you the challenge.
But it's a rich industry. Why is it shrinking?
So the challenge is the fact that the industry, for last year when we did the total tax report, it tells you that for every 1 CD that comes into the industry, about 46 pesos goes back to government in the form of taxation, levies, and fees. Currently, for you, if you bought credit, of 100 CDs, about 24 CDs goes back to government and taxes. So you start with your CSTs, you start with all the levies, and then you come and impose another 15, percent.
So the players are suffocating.
Completely suffocating. There's the physical space, and you see, this is an industry that requires a lot of investment. So it's not surprising that we had a lot of BWAs, where the broadband wireless providers, who are local companies. A lot of licenses were given out. I think there might be only 1 or 2 that are currently existing. It's just because of the fact that the industry is overly taxed, and so because of that, the industry is really struggling. And it is important that we work on the structure. It's important that we provide a lot of physical space for the industry to be able to provide the wheels on which other industries can run. And so it's really important that we pay attention to that.
But if you talk about being taxed, which taxes are very harsh, what you do is you pass it on to the consumers. So why are you complaining?
So the thing about it is that there's so much, that you'll be able to pass on. The product, in as much as it's inelastic, there is some elasticity in there. So let me give you a typical example based on data. When government decided to reduce CST from 9% to 5%, what would happen is that government's revenue rather went up because the uptake was high. Again, look at the issues of e-levy. You would have thought that this was a very inelastic product. But when e-levy was imposed, you saw the dampener that came on top of it. So the Ghanaian himself is struggling, buying the cost of kinky now. So if you have to make that decision between getting data and buying kinky, buying Gary,
you choose the one that's more urgent.
So people will make those choices. So it is good that we've had the 2 political parties when we shared the telecom manifesto with them. Both of them have talked about, going to reduce the cost of data. To tell you the truth, the reason why you're not getting funding into this industry is because Ghana's cost of data is actually low.
In fact, that's what I was going to go to. So if the cost of data is low and yet we are crying, then what's the problem? So
the challenge, again, is the fact that, the margins, and so the problem is the margins that we have so far as the operators are concerned. So if any investor who would want to come and invest into this market. So we know that Airtel, AT, for example, government has been on the market wanting some investment. The reason why you will struggle to be able to get that happening and make it attractive for any investor is that you want an EBITDA that is positive, so you want to be able to show investors that when they come into the market, they will be able to get that. There's research that has even been done by NCA itself that shows that in Africa, I think we're about the 2nd lowest. But the fact that your cost even is low is not the challenge. The fact that the cost of doing business is very high. So if we don't work on that, where the taxation and the physical space is so small, what happens is that you don't have room for people to be able to get money now to do the investments that are required. And so it's a challenge. And as much as we as an industry, we hope that the cost of data can come down so that we will get a lot more people consuming it. If the cost of producing 1 gig of data is still that high, and then how much you sell it, the margins are so small, you will not be able to get the investment that are required to even be able to expand. It is also important to note that in the recent years, the tower companies have not built a lot of new towers.
Why?
And the reason is just because of the cost of doing it, So when you build the towers, it takes a while for you to be able to recover your money. And so if the tower companies also cannot pass all that cost onto the telcos, because the telcos can also not pass all that cost onto us, and already we ourselves are crying about the high cost of data, and then you have that high taxation, fees and levies on it, you then will struggle.
So the cost of data is high for the consumer. You think that is actually low. Who can solve this problem? Is it government? Is it the industry people?
So it's multiple, several players would come in, but first it's government itself. So when you sell spectrum 2x10 at $60 million, and then or you sell 2x, which was sold to MTN, or you sell the same spectrum 2x5 at $30 million to Telecel, and then your average revenue per user, the level at which we are comparable to Tanzania, where Tanzania then sells that, but with even a larger market size at 20 million. You then put a high burden that has to be, whenever they spend that 60 million, they have to amortize that and be able to recover that. And then you also front load that. These operators would have to pay that money upfront. So when we hear now, I think the NDC and the MPP are all talking about the fact that now they would, make sure that these are not front loaded. That is one of the solutions. If you also have the situations that for every one CD, as I told you, that revenue that comes in, 46 pesos goes back to government. Where is the space for people to be able to invest? So you have the situations where the likes of EPA would go to Parliament and they are given like a 500% increment. You have to then go and engage before that is reduced. You have the situation where Civil Aviation Authority is quoting their charges for their permit in dollars, and you write to them and they won't respond. So you have some of the assemblies, imposing heavy fees, right-of-way fees. You have the situation where even protection of this infrastructure is not coming. So we need to definitely deal with the government side. But then we also need to deal with another thing, the issue of even local content. Because currently, Omar, this show, if somebody is watching on CT and is watching on your apps, that person, if he was in the UK and wanted to watch content, that content will be sitting on a server in the UK. Our content might be sitting on a server outside. So for every connectivity you want to do on data, we go onto the international gateways to be able to access it. If we had a lot of content sitting locally, and then we're consuming data and we were just staying locally, then the charges that you'll be paying to any of the ISPs or any of the MNOs, providing you would only be charges for using their networks or the local networks.
So our importation is not exclusive to goods only. Even our internet we import.
Exactly, even emails that might go between two people would hit the international,
So then there'll be a charge there.
Exactly, the international, they will charge you. It is the reason why on the 14th of March, when we had those multiple cables, you saw the challenges.
Which didn't happen here in Ghana.
Exactly, it didn't.
Affected
if it was not for the fact that majority of our content was sitting outside, the impact would not have been that much, So that's also another thing that we really need to look at. And
interesting.
Yes, the issues around...
The NCA and the Ministry of Communication had been giving us the indication that MTN may be the problem or the big elephant in the room. And when I use problem here, I'm using it with a lot of caution, where I talk about the SMP being the solution to the industry. The government has been pushing the agenda, but we still see the problems we are seeing. Is it really going to be the solution?
So again, I think the structure of the industry really needs to be looked at. I think one of the things that we as an industry should have done is that this whole conversation of correcting the structure, which is what the NCA's imposition of the SMP on MTN is, if we had done it internally as industry, it would have been better done.
Okay.
Because you realize that the SMP has been going on forever, but it really has not changed the way it ought to go. So yes, you need, for the telecom industry, the structure has to be positive in such a way that, it's a lot more competitive, but the mode of which we have implemented it, if we had done it in a slightly different manner, it was in such a way that your focus is on pushing the smaller brands also coming up, it would have been a better way of doing it. So that conversation is a conversation that we really need to have.
Talking of smaller brands and SMP, government had an interest in Ghana Telecom, Vodafone, now Teleso. Does government still have an interest in that?
Government still has 30% share.
13 or 30?
30.
So it's still, since 2007, it's been the same.
Exactly.
Why is government not able to shore up its own company? Because this should be a government company, shouldn't it?
It's one of the problems that we have as an industry. So you have the situation where government, when you acquired when Ghana
Telecom
was acquired,
you
had your 30% share in that. All the investment that have happened over several, and it's not only just this current government, all the governments that have been there, they have not matched it. So what had happened is that you find out that the private players put money into the business, government does not match, but government still says it has 30%. So that has to be fixed in such a way that if the person who has 70% share brings 70 million, then you'll be expecting that the person who has 30% would also bring 30 million. So that then you would be able to push investment really into it.
So the scale is going down on one side and the other side, nobody is.
It is the reason why you find out that these divorces would happen, because if you still would want to charge 30 million for spectrum when you have not invested in it. Ideally, if you want to bring these other players up, your expectation is that 30 million you would put in as equity, so that then you don't have the company being overly geared. Because what then happens is that if you also, as an equity holder in that business, you don't bring money in it, then the majority shareholder, once he starts bringing money in it, he will treat it as debt rather than equity. So those are some of the conversations that we need to have. Now we have the situation of 80, which is wholly government owned. Is government able to, does government have the discipline to invest?
80 is 100% government?
It's a state-owned company now, 100%.
That's a measure of
Airtel and Tigo, which both Millicom and then Airtel decided to leave the market. Bati and government decided to hold it. And so government.
So it means government has two interests in the telecom space. For national security purposes, it may make sense, but economically speaking, it is not as significant.
No. So you see, again, government took that decision when it, waived off its interest in Ghana Telecom then. And I think that this sector, the discipline you require in terms of investment and all of that, it's not an industry that government, you would want government to put, its money.
Government should enable the environment, but it should not compete.
No,
it cannot.
It cannot. A government, the levels of investment that you require in it and the speed at which you do it, that's not something that governments have shown that they are able to do and do effectively. And it's the reason why I'm pretty sure that we've had the ministry talk about the fact that even 80, they are on the market wanting to find, some...
Should we bring in more competitors who are stronger? So should we go to East Africa and bring those big giants we see to come and compete here? So, would that help? Would that open up the market? Would it change anything? Again,
it is about how do you do that? You definitely would want to get a lot of investment into the market. I'm not too sure this market is a market that can, take 60 million plus market. It's a market that can take a lot of players. What you want to do is to make sure that the market is competitive enough so that people would want to invest. Bear in mind that even for MTN, their localization, there was a portion of their shares that they were not able to sell. If you make it such a way that it's more interesting and people who are interested in the telecom industry can come and invest in 80, can come invest in, Telecel. I sometimes, not speaking as a CEO of the chamber, I look at it and say maybe even a two-player market might help us. So a merger,
So we are certain that these are two competitors.
Exactly, where they all have good
Except that the alternatives will not be many. There will be just two alternatives.
Yeah, but
you may end up being caught between the devil and the deep blue sea.
But you see, again, again, you should bear in mind that...
This is you as a consumer speaking now.
Yes.
Because if the Telkom see that you are saying that they should be reduced, but they will not be happy with you. So let me take it that you are the consumer now speaking.
No, again, and speaking as an engineer as well, and somebody who's been in this space for a while, you should also bear in mind that you don't only have, especially where we're now becoming a lot more data-driven. Voice is really on the low. There are other ISPs that are in the market. There are other players that are in the market as well. So again, what you want to do is that in as much as you would want a lot of choices, you would want to also make sure that the players have a favorable market in which they play. So when you do it in such a way that there are too many players chasing a few players in the market, it does not make them strong enough. Okay. So 3 would not be bad if you could make the environment good enough for all of them. You could make the physical environment friendly. You could make sure that the cost of power, for example, the tower companies spend a lot of their monies on power. And now some of the conversation we are having with PRC, for example, is that our tariff range is the most punitive, the commercial, the highest point of, and so there's a conversation, hopefully the same way that when you take these, the mines, they are given some preferential tariffs. We're hoping we'll be able to get to that point. Okay. So if you get that preferential tariff for the tower companies that do most of the power, they pass it on to the tower, to the MNOs. The MNOs will then also pass it on to you and I, consumers.
I need to take a break, but I just want to ask this quick question before we go. How the e-levy impacted the money market, mobile money market? Is the market recovering now?
Yes. It's recovering. So what has happened is that with the reduction from 1.5 to 1%, we've seen a recovery. But again, when you look at the acceleration before e-levy came, the way the growth was being accelerated and what it is now, there's a dampener on it, so that has reduced. There's some recovery happening. But again, when you look at all that recovery as well, you need to look at it in a real sense because you're in a very high inflation market. So in the past, if you were sending me, if you paid Kinky for me every day, the amount of money you were going to be transferring now in nominal terms has gone up. Just because of the fact that there's a lot of inflation, then also you have the depreciation of the CD. So when you want to look at the growth and you want to look at the real growth, you will find out that the growth levels are not as high as they ought to be.
This is Face to Face on Channel 1 Television. My name is Umaru Sandam. My guest is Engineer Kenneth Ashigbey. We are discussing his industry, first of all, telecoms industry. When we come back, we'll talk about Galamsey, which is something he has decided to take up for himself and say he's going to ensure that our environment is safe. Ask him how that campaign is going. Please stay. You're welcome back. This is Face to Face on Channel 1 Television. Let's talk about Galamsey now. Ken, this is a campaign, like I said, that we started in 2007. You joined us. We've been doing this. Is it the case that we took our eyes off the ball momentarily and then we lost it? Or there has never been a commitment by the people who ought to have the commitment to fight it? Where did we get it wrong? How can we get back to this conversation?
So, Umaru, so the reason why CT started this campaign was that in the before the 2016 elections, the NDC was fighting it. You remember there was even a change in the minister, because he was the one fighting it. Inusa was fighting, and Inusa was changed. And you remember that in 2016, the current president was heard in Obuasi saying that it is not true that when he comes, he's coming to, stop Galamsey, that thing that people are saying about him. So the partisanship has always been a problem. So 2016, that happened. 2017, early 2017, the CTFM started the fight. The media jumped into it. The president said he was prepared to put his presidency on the line. So there was the fight. You remember we were going out and going to the town hall meetings and all of that. When we were doing the town hall meetings, even early in 2016, as we started the fight, you could hear the local NDC on the ground say, you see, the MPP have come and this is what they're doing at you. So as we're getting close to the 2020 election, then you started hearing, then the MPP started responding to the fact that, the local people are accusing them. Some people are saying they will vote against them and all of that. And then they started turning coat. That is why even Operation Vanguard, they withdrew the military from Operation Vanguard. And then in 2020, we had the NDC, some of the executives, standing in the pit where the Galamseys were, where an illegal activity was going on, and saying that when they come back after January 7, 2021, they should go back into the pit. That was even a criminal activity that we should have caused his arrest. So in 2020, you hear the MPP talk about the fact that they lost some seats and all of that. And so because of that, come 2024 again, you saw now an MPP parliamentary candidate standing with the current minister, the Western Regional Minister, and saying that they were forming a WhatsApp group. So that when anybody came fighting the illegality, they
let them know.
Aha. Then we also had the current, the former president, the NDC's President Mahama, saying that he was going to grant an amnesty to those who have been arrested because they have, he said, that's to quote him, And so if you look into the NDC and NPP manifesto, there you see them talk about wanting to change things, but the crisis fight is absent. So our challenge has been the partisan nature of the fight. And the fight, and again, you heard the Speaker of Parliament say in Parliament that the people in Parliament, which is the NDC and NPP, they are part of it. We saw the NDC and NPP sit in Parliament and they passed the LI 2462 that would enable people to go into the forest reserve to go and do this mining. So, the ill wealth from illegal mining is funding both the NDC and NPP.
So it's a bigger battle then. So it's not as easy as it looks.
Well, it is easy. All you need is the right leadership. I can tell you that.
But if the right leadership would have its fingers bent because it went to fight Galamsey, it will not make that mistake. If it lost so many seats in 2020, it will not be. It's a political party. The basic function of a political party or aim is to win political power.
And then poison itself, even itself in the process.
It doesn't care whose ox to the god. Winning an election is the primary aim
so
of a political
that is why
party.
we've lost the essence of what the political parties are supposed to be. And that's the reason why currently for the Ghana Coalition, again, so the Ghana Coalition is a coalition that is made up of the Media Coalition and then 9 other blocks. So we're bringing together labor, we're bringing together academia, we're bringing together the religious bodies, the traditional bodies, the youth associations, civil society, business groups, all of that, 10 different blocks, now to advocate for that. And we have a few asks that we've asked of the president, which include declaring of a state of emergency over our water bodies, the buffers of it, and then also in the forest reserve and the revocation. But we don't end there. The 5th ask for the Media Coalition is that we need the NDC's presidential candidate, His Excellency the former President John Mahama, and then the MPP's presidential candidate, His Excellency Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, to declare openly the support for this, crisis response that we are asking for. Unfortunately, we've written to the two of them. We don't have any response yet, but we are going to push that. And also, as the coalition, the Ghana Coalition Against Galamsey, we're standing on the back of what the medical GMA issued, and UTAG also did that. Now, organized labor has agreed that getting close to the end of the election, the month, we are going to take other actions. Because you see, if we don't make this a non-partisan battle, bring everybody in, you would have a situation where some of these political parties would want to take advantage of the fight to the detriment of Ghanaians. They will be sitting in Accra and saying that when we come, why are you not fighting Galamsey? And then they will go into the local areas. But we have to make it in such a way that everybody would hear all of us as Ghanaians. I'm not a supporter of the way Israel is fighting its war against Hamas and all of that, the way civilians are dying. But you see the way they've all come together because they realize the fact that they are in a crisis. Again, it's like Ukraine. So we need to get the political parties all behind the commander-in-chief and saying that we are fighting this together. And I can tell you, the movements are going to happen.
But you see, my issue is that the government is the institution we set up to lead us as a nation. So the government controls the armed forces, the police, everything. If government actors and players themselves are lackadaisical, they are developing cold feet in this fight, maybe there should be an admission that we've lost this fight, let's give up and move on.
Unfortunately, you and I don't have the luxury.
We cannot give up.
You cannot. You see, and this is the point where our political leaders need to realize. We are in a desperate situation. The situation where Ghana Water now, even if they've now changed from using alum to make the water clear, they are not able to take the heavy metals out of it. So when it is clear, it doesn't mean that it is clean. And so you are forcing us to drink this kind of water. If you have the situation where turbidity of water is now, I'm sure by now it's over 14,000. And you know the interesting thing, there's drought also happening. So it's even going to compound the situation. And if you have people who are desperate for water, you know what they do? So the state need to realize that the time where we're in, where we allow them, because they could get away with that, it's completely gone. You know, so we are in a desperate...
But they don't seem to be interested in
because we, and especially the middle class have been, you know, complicit because they've been quiet. They've been the people who've been benefiting out of this. So you saw Father Blaise research that he did. Galamsey currently, the way it is, it's not about people benefiting from it. Let me give you a typical example. If you take an acre of land and you did Galamsey over it, because you will not have to restore the land and do all of that. I'm not talking about the small scale miners who are responsible, but the Galamseyers. He would earn about $6,000 out of that. When he's done, that land is poisoned, that land is completely dead.
Gone.
Completely dead. But if you get that acre of land and you start planting coconut on it, what is happening is that in your 4th year, you could start making $2,500 a month, a year, for another 30 years. But who is there going to be able to tell our people this? Who is going to provide the support for the first 3-4 years that you are not going to start, you know? And so we are not taking this tough decisions.
But the demands we're making for a state of emergency, for instance, the Galamsey, we see it from here, is negative, is bad, but it's a source of livelihood for people. And you've heard some politicians say that, even the chiefs have said that. That is what the people rely and depend on. Are you taking food out of their mouth for the national interest, and would that be something a government would be willing? Should we not rather be thinking of giving them jobs then? Is that...
So again, who is benefiting out of this? You know, so again, you need to tell the women, the poor farmer in Ashigbey, for example, that now when he goes and he earns maybe 200 cedis in a day for the work that he's doing, you know, and now he has to buy water. You know, the fact that that child that has been born, that is deformed. The fact that, you know, that land, that his forebears have used in taking people to school and, you know, building some, you know, it's not going to be. So nobody, you know, because the politicians themselves, they also just look at the next election, the next 4 years. They don't look beyond that. They are, you know, they are benefiting again from, you know, the lack of knowledge of our people. So they seem, it's like Esau. So Esau thought that, you know, that was a lot of broth. I'm hungry at this particular point. Forgetting that beyond that, you know. So I think that one of the things that we as media, we also need to do is to do the linkage between the impact of what they're doing and actually what it is. So the thing that they think they've gotten that is jobs for them is actually somebody who has, you know, cut his tongue, grilling it and thinking that he has some sweet meat.
So it's not really...
No, at all.
But maybe they are the ones who live there. Is it the case that they can't see or they can't simply be bothered? Those who live closer to the
Again, you see, in the past, when they were doing it with their shovels and picks and all of that, but ask yourself, how many of these young people are able to rent an excavator for a day? No. How many of them are able to fuel it? So it is the people who have come from outside. The Accra people who have come in there, and they are exploiting. So these people are victims. And so that's where, you know, we need to really start showing them the alternatives to doing it. How, again, you know, we talked about using community mining as one of the solutions. But go and ask who are the owners of these community mines. You will find out that invariably it's also become one of the things that we give to our political apparatchiks.
State of emergency means a curtailment of the fundamental human rights of the people in the area where the state of emergency is imposed. Many think that that would not be a good thing, because at that time, when you impose state of emergency, people may abuse it, people may be hurt, and in your attempt to save the environment, you end up killing people because the soldiers may just go in there.
So again, so look at it. So the water bodies, the buffers of the water bodies, that place is an illegality already. So you've not declared a state of emergency. But when I was going to St. Augustine's College and I drove to Takrady, I drove on the Pra because there were fishermen who were on that water fishing. So your activity is preventing those. Is that not a human right? So we're talking about the water bodies. We're talking about the buffers. Now we're talking about the forest reserves where most of our water bodies take their sources. Who are the people who are in there? Akonta mine. who are in there, and so you are going to prevent them from going there. That is your problem. Or Heritage Imperial that was giving, how do you call it, an exploratory license, or, you know, and then they go in there and then they are mining. So again, you know, the way we are packaging this is the reason why when you have the president of the House of Chiefs package this information in such a way as if we're saying that, you know, nobody should mine. There are some small-scale miners who are doing very responsible mining, who are far away from the river bodies. That's not what you... So when you declare the state of emergency over the water bodies and the buffers, those will not be affected. And definitely it is not this, you know, when you have a child brought to a hospital, hemorrhaging, some of the urgent surgeries you will do, it's not something you do for a long time. So you do that for a very short time just to make sure that everybody knows that that place you're not going to go onto. And then you put other measures in place. But again, that's why our old folks say, you have, you know, you are swarmed with these.
You have to halt it first.
Exactly. You need to halt it. And again, but we need to have learned from the first time when we did that, when we did the moratorium on the mining. And so we need to be very deliberate about where we're saying that. So once you get into the forest reserve, we're saying revoke every license that you've given to anybody. And you know the interesting...
That would be legal. That would be illegal matter.
You see, but that is why you need a state of emergency. Because you see, Omaru, when you have the situation where you are being poisoned, when you have a situation, you know that, you remember that PRC, at the last major increase in tariffs, they gave Ghana Water 1% extra. Now you are paying to fund the greed of other people. When you have that particular situation, you use what is necessary. You think surgeries are pleasant things. They are not.
But they must be done.
They must be done.
What is your difficulty with the House of Chiefs said?
So you see, again, so when you have the president of the House of Chiefs, they issued a position paper on the 6th of February, where they came up with some issues where they were against illegality and they were asking to be placed on boards. They were asking for special courts. Now you have him on another platform where there is a crisis of genocidal proportions. And then instead of coming out and giving us solutions, he comes and blanket says that, you know, again, and saying as if we were, you know, instead of focusing on the solution, he comes to say, oh, don't grant a ban on all of that without providing us with a solution. And then again, the interesting thing is that there are situations where you've had some traditional leaders like the Otumfo take action. You have this Father Blake came on, he was on City talking about what has happened in Jema, where the chief of Jema, you know, has been given over 1 million cedis and decided that no. There is a small town, I'm trying to remember the name, it's in the eastern region. No, but there's another town. Okay. There's a water body there called Esuboni. Okay. They don't have a chief, it's a queen mother that is there. The queen mother and her people have decided that for them there's not going to be Galamsey there. That water is still clear, you know. And so, but then you have other chiefs that are complicit. That chiefs that about 20 meters, 30 meters from their palace, there's Galamsey happening in there. And these people are not doing anything about it. Some of them are actually actively involved in the Galamsey.
Or at least they are endorsing it.
Oh, some of them, beyond the endorsement, there's some of them who are actively the people behind it who are giving that. And then you have the House of Chiefs, who will not help us to find a solution, but only finding fault with what the solution is. It's not enough, because they have been given special positions. Even traditionally, they are the people who are supposed to, you know, guard these lands for us. And so we expect them that he, the chief, when he gets those opportunities, should be talking about solution to this particular crisis.
But they don't have a point at all. We used to be called the gold coast, which means we have gold.
Yes.
If we have gold, which is a foreign exchange earner for us, then we're just stopping everything. Have you considered the economic cost of banning Galamsey? Again,
so, well, you see, again, so as an engineer, what I would say is that let's do the total cost. So you have a cost, you have some benefits you get out of Galamsey. And now we even know that when you listen to Professor Frimpong Boateng, the cost of restoring even the land, where is that money going to come from? So that's only just looking at the monetary part of it. How are you going to compensate for those people who have died in the pits? How are you? Now you're drinking heavy metals. The diseases that are coming, the deformed babies that are coming, how are you going to equate for it? So we're not saying that, you know, we're not saying let's go the El Salvador way, where they have stopped, you know. We're saying that you need to stop and reset. And we're saying that some of the places, for example, on the water bodies, on the buffers of the water bodies, it is illegal in Ghana. So we're not saying a ban, because you don't ban an illegality. And it's the only place that you would be then contending with. It's your forest reserve. 37 of your forest reserve have already been degraded. What is it that you're getting? There's carbon trading that can even be gotten out of these places. So when you stop that, your water bodies that you now are at 14,000 NTUs, you begin to restore them. You begin to find other alternatives. You then begin to put a proper structure to it. Because, as I was saying to you, as just last week, it's still happening. So if you want to continue using your old method, and it says tighter regulation. What is tight regulation? He should give us one tight. So we would expect that our revered chiefs, they would follow the path of the people like Otumfo, and let's find solutions. You're in a crisis, so you definitely need to take what the minister says draconian. But when you're in a crisis, you take draconian, solutions to be able to stop.
His deputy also says no way.
The least I say about him, the better. You realize that in the UK, bastion of democracy, when they had those riots that was happening, they were taking people to court in 24 hours. They were, jailing those people. And what happened? The solution, they found a solution. We have been doing this, and you enumerated it, over 8 years. And what do you call people who do the same thing expecting different results?
The Democracy Hub group went on a demonstration. Initially, what they told the police was they were going to demonstrate against economic hardship and several other issues. But when they showed up on the street, they held placards, they were fighting Galamsey and all of that. They have been arrested. I'm sure they'll be having their day in court. Is demonstrations the way? And will demonstrations in Accra change anything happening in Enyimem?
Definitely. You see, we remember that on the 7th of January 2017, the president said we should be citizens and not spectators. So every democratic tool that we have is available for us. So the Ghana Coalition Against Galamsey, one of the focal blocks is Labour. And, Labour had said that, getting close to the election, to the end of the month, we're going to... So the issues around strikes, the issues around demonstration. We also, one of the technical groups of the Ghana Coalition Against Galamsey is a legal group. So we'll be looking at other legal means by which we would be able to do this. If it means taking people to Arusha, we know that ecocide is something that, the international courts are looking at. It's not been done yet. But there are some genocidal, activities going on based on...
That's how seriously you're putting this.
That is what it is. Because if I come to your house now and I put poison into your food...
You're killing me.
Exactly.
That's genocide.
And if you have people doing it on a mass scale, what is that?
Going to Arusha, Tanzania to prosecute them.
Yes, beyond that. So everywhere we can go to. So, and that's why for me, it is important that our political leaders realize that some of these crimes, they don't have a time bar. So we need to be careful, because this is what we are exposing ourselves to. And I'm pretty sure that, we will get some lawyers to be able to support that, and we would be pursuing all the things that we need to do to be able to ensure that, again, we are desperate. We are being killed. And so we need to do everything we can to make sure we preserve not only tomorrow, but even today.
This is Face to Face on Channel 1 Television. My guest is Kenneth Ashigbey. He is convener of the Media Coalition Against Galamsey. That media coalition is part of a bigger coalition that is fighting illegal mining. There's a plan by organized labor to start some mass action from the end of the month if the government does not act. As we speak, the president of the land has not spoken on this matter since all the calls started coming through. When we come back, I'll ask Engineer Ken Ashigbey, what should the president be doing, considering that he had put his presidency on the line in the past? What are the 3 things that the president can do to fix this? Is the president really the man who has all the powers to fix Galamsey? I'll ask those questions and then we'll push it forward. You're welcome back. This is Face to Face on Channel 1 Television. My guest is Kenneth Ashigbey. They have made some calls to the government to help deal with this Galamsey matter. The organized labor had called a press conference announcing that it was going to take a series of actions. As we speak, the president, as a #1 gentleman of the land, has not made a public statement on Galamsey yet, even though his agents and lieutenants have been speaking on what the approach would be. Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, the vice president and flag bearer of the NPP, has made some statements. His running mate has also made some statements about Galamsey. But what will be the government's plan moving forward? Or is it because this government is almost ending, We should rather be focused on the persons who are hoping to be president in the future than the current president. Those are the issues that we are looking at here on Face to Face as we continue with the fight against Galamsey. Now, Ken, I mentioned to you earlier, and I want to repeat that if you speak to MPP people, they will remind you that when they won power in 2016, they had about 169 seats in parliament. Today, they have 136 MPs in parliament, and this is because they went to fight Galamsey, and that all the Galamsey areas, they lost their seats. So beyond the economic cost of Galamsey, which we've talked about, the political cost is a heavy one. They paid the price in 2020. They are not willing to pay that. At least a lot of them, when they speak to us off the record, and even some have spoken on the record on this matter. Are you sure we can have a political intervention to support and stop this fight?
So, again, I think that sometimes when it's not for nothing that when you want to do this causal analysis, you need to be a very, so I think sometimes, yes, it's true, they lost some in some of these areas, but they lost in other areas as well, which did not have any Galamsey in there. But so what is the cost when they make those arguments that we should continue poisoning ourselves? There's Honorable Apia Kubihu and he and his chief in Agogo. They have decided that, they won't do any Galamsey in there. And, so he's keeping on fighting it. But again, and because of that, because both parties have demonstrated that they like benefiting out of that. I told you the example in 2016 what the MPP opposition candidates then had said, and the fact that the NDC itself, I've shown you where they've happened, is the reason why we need to force the NDC and MPP presidential candidates, as well as the rest, there are 13, the other 11 to also join them, to also show their commitment to that fight, so that the Galamseyers will see that this is a fight that we're all fighting
both
together.
sides.
Both sides.
So it will not be as if one side is fighting, the other one benefit.
If you don't do that, we will continue this sinusoidal thing.
What if the government wants to do it, but the opposition is not bothered?
Oh, so that is where then, again, if we mobilize the civil mobilization that we'll do, then we'll show that then the opposition is not on the side of Ghanaians. In this particular situation, Omaru, as media people, we're not playing devil's advocate and coming to say that
we're being specific.
We
blunt.
We're on the side of Ghana. Anybody who is not on the side of Ghana is an enemy. So if the opposition decide that they won't support the fight, we would declare them the way we ought to call them. If the government decide that they won't do it, we will call them out. But currently, Omaru, the only person who can act is the commander-in-chief. We run an executive presidency. It is the president, His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo, who has to act. And again, he demonstrated it during COVID. The fact that he rallied the country around, he made us sleep, and everybody did it. Because we all saw the reason why we needed to do it.
It was an emergency.
Exactly, it was an emergency. So that is what we need. The president, he needs to realize the fact that is the emergency that confronts us.
He has been quiet so far, though.
He's been painfully quiet. The loudness of his silence is deafening, and it's important that as the commander-in-chief, and you see, he's demonstrated it before. In 2017, when he said he was prepared, he didn't say he was going to put his president. He said he was prepared to put his president. Even that, we saw what happened to the turbidity of water.
Reduced.
So, exactly. So what we need him to do in this, maybe a month, declare the states, get the military. I have spoken to several military people, and I've spoken to somebody who is very high up within the chain of this whole, regulation so far as mining is concerned. And he agreed that statement he made to me about 3 or 4 months ago, that if there was anybody who wanted this thing to stop and who could cause it, it is His Excellency the President. He has the power to be able to do it. And we should do it now till you see, we don't have, there's no alternative. I hear people talk about the fact that we will import water. From where? Ghana already, you have the basin for about 7 different countries. Their waters, drain into you. So when you kill yours, you won't get that water. And the cost of being able to run pipes to those places to bring water, you won't get it. So who is explaining that to those people who are in the pits? And this thing you're doing, today you think you get groundwater to do. That groundwater is also polluted. Very soon that groundwater you will not be able to touch. And then, so you want to do what? Yes, when you go into those people who are benefiting from it, they have Voss and Avian, they buy it. well, very soon they will not be able to afford the volumes to be able to have their baths and cook their food. That's when they're seeing it. And for you people in Accra, the Densu currently is also under attack.
The Densu which provides water to Western Accra.
The Western Accra.
The Wager Dam.
Exactly. So, when you went into that town, that the fight that was happening in that town that got the chief to mobilize and then some excavators got bent is because they wanted to save the water you drink in the Densu. So it is important for all of us to realize that this thing, my staff, we went to Nkoko, some of them, when I do this Galamsey thing, so that they look at me, when they saw it, they were sitting in the pickup and they saw people panning, the Galamsey by the side of the road. Then they came back by the time I also got there, they said, Chief, did you see it? A lot of us in Accra, when you see this thing on Channel 1 TV, you think that this is
far from you.
It is here. Now
it's not remote.
Exactly, it's not remote. And you know that the interesting thing, even the Volta, up north, the Volta is also being
polluted.
Exactly. And I will share that picture with you so that maybe you let our viewers also see it. So this thing we're talking about, it's so real. It's so close to us because you see the vegetables you eat, you don't know where it's been planted, you don't know what water has been used. The fish you eat, you don't know anything. And you know the sad part, our pollution is now also entering into the seas. So where the artisanal fisher folks are going, and unfortunately they are bringing a lot of debris, now we are also polluting that place as well. So it is going to be depleted of fish. So we are also depriving them of their livelihood.
It's a global problem then, because if you enter the sea, then that makes it worse.
It is.
So we're going to put chemicals in the sea.
Yes,
and that's going to, the aquatic life there would also be affected.
Exactly.
Now, the organized labor, often what they can do, their strongest call is to say we are going to go on a strike. And for organized labor to say we're going on a strike, that would send shivers down the spine of every government. But since they said this 2 or 3 weeks ago, the government hasn't quaked. Well, I mean, what we heard was the minister saying it's draconian. We would have expected that by now there'll be some pronouncements that suggest that don't do it, please don't do it. But it's almost like the bluff of organized labor is being called by the government.
I'm not too sure. The president said he had set up a 5-member committee. Free from the media coalition. Our response to that meeting was the fact that till government, passes a state of emergency or at least declares a state of moratorium, we're not going to meet.
You're not listening.
Yes, we're not going to have a meeting. But
so first point, stop everything.
Action.
Then we can start talking.
Exactly.
So not talk before you.
No, you can't. So organized labor went to the meeting, and the feedback we got from the meeting, they seem to get it that something has to happen.
But they said they wanted more time, and organized labor said we can't give him more.
And again, so I'll speak because they are part of the Ghana coalition against Galamsey. That time is not there, and it's counting. And I can tell you that there are some religious bodies that are planning, to immediately after the end of this month, there's a prayer protest that is being planned.
Okay.
That is going to drive this particular thing. I don't have their permissions to say, but I know they are going to be presenting a petition to government. They will do the prayer, they will pray and protest, and then they will end it with a church service or a religious service and all of that. Because you see, not only are we going to do the things that we have to do, because God is not going to do for us what we have to do, but we're also invoking God to also intervene as well. Now, every morning when I pray that God turns their heart around. But anybody who's benefiting from this Galamsey, God should fight for himself. And so the leaders who are refusing to fight, they should know that they are touching the apple of God's eye. When you decide that that poor widow, you are depriving her of the land that she should farm on. That poor child is now born very deformed. You should know you are touching God's eye. God will fight for the orphans, He will fight for the widows. And that's what our leaders are playing with.
Nana Akufo-Addo has 4 months to leave office. Maybe he's gotten to the level where you can describe him as a lame duck. Maybe that's why he's not able to do anything. Maybe we should focus on the future presidents and not necessarily this current one.
Omar,
would that be the reason?
Omar, you don't have 4 months. You don't have 4 months. Again, I say to you, if you go and look at the trends in terms of the way the turbidity of water goes, normally at this time where there's drought, that's where your water is cleanest. But when you have the situation where the turbidity is getting, the point at which it is getting to, if you want to say you wait 4 months before, by the time you are the 4th month, you are licking clay. You don't have any water to drink. The level of the poisoning will be so much. And you see, these excavators, it's not like those times where they do the Galamsey proper, where there's a shovel and all of that. This time when they take those excavators in, they take it into a forest, within an hour, the level they are able to. Exactly. So we can't wait. And the interesting thing that is not as much as, the president might be a lame duck, he currently has executive powers. He is the only one who can declare the state of emergency according to the Constitution, Article 31, and be able to get all the military and everybody to get the Navy into the water, get the Air Force flying over these water bodies, get the Army, getting, because you see, when you get these shamfans, when you bend them, you're wasting your time. You need to be able to get the Navy in the water. You need to get the Army with trucks that will be able to pull them out. How on earth are people still, welders still fabricating? And this is what the state of emergency will do for you. When you declare a state of emergency, all those funds that are being fabricated and being moved, how on earth the excavators? You are finding excavators in the theater of this illegality. You know that at the Minerals Commission, they have a monitoring center that they are supposed to have, they have these excavators that are supposed to be tracked and all of that. How are they not using it? Under a state of emergency, if you got that under any of the military commanders, they will take that feedback and they will be able to do it.
Engineer Kenneth Ashigbey, thank you for joining us on Face to Face today.
Thank you very much. It's not been an enjoyable thing to
do. I know. And we pray that the campaign succeeds.
It has to. But I have to be grateful to the entire City FM and then Channel 1 TV for the leadership you continue to show, and to the rest of the media. It's not for nothing that the Constitution has given us the right to hold leadership to account. This is the time to be able to do. We need to be fearless in our fight because we are fighting to save our very lives.
Indeed. And so let the campaign continue. The hashtag we're using on our social media platforms for this campaign is Stop Galamsey Now. You can see some of the pictures and videos that we have captured. A number of other journalists who are out there on the field also doing various campaigns on this particular issue. Help us save Ghana. That is what I cannot say here on this show. My name is Umaru Sandhamado. Thank you for watching. Stay with us.